Hi there, welcome to Antidote, where you get science-backed wisdom for real life. Today I wanted to focus on ADHD and how your social life can be affected by it. This is something that I don't think there's enough content or material about, so today I'm going to look at three main ways that ADHD can affect your social life, as well as practical strategies to help with this. So the first area I want to focus on is emotional dysregulation. Now, this is something that's common in people with ADHD, and essentially what it means is that our reactions to things can be heightened and more intense and actually disproportionate to the thing that's triggered us. So the long and short of it is essentially this can manifest in regular mood swings, because if the slightest thing can trigger us quite severely, our moods can go up and down depending on day to day and even within the day itself, hour to hour. So the truth is, if you are someone with ADHD or just someone who's prone to mood swings, you are going to end up flaking or cancelling or rearranging plans maybe a little bit more regularly than other people do. So for me personally, it has happened a few times in my life where I've committed to, an event or a big social gathering, and the day of, or maybe the day before, I've ended up bailing and cancelling. And the problem with this is, if you do this regularly or you do this a lot and it becomes a pattern that people notice in you, they can start to interpret that as rudeness or aloofness and thinking, oh, this guy doesn't really like socializing. And then it can lead to you not getting as many invites to things because people just assume that it's not your scene. Or they start to think, yeah, this guy doesn't like us because we keep inviting him to things and, half the time he doesn't show up or he kind of cancels and flakes. And knowing this, there's been times where I've forced myself out and it's actually turned out really good. Just being around people doing something fun has just lifted my mood. I've had a great time. It's kind of brought me out of whatever funk I was in. But that's a bit of a double-edged sword because I could do the exact same thing. I go there and I just know I'm being no fun. I'm not enjoying anything. I'm kind of just being a bit of a buzzkill for the people around me. And, that can be quite dangerous because that can lead me to, okay, I'm just going to drink until I start having fun. And when you're in the wrong mood, just drinking and drinking to try and get yourself in a good mood, it's not something I would recommend at all. Because at the end of the day, if you're someone who's susceptible to mood swings, I don't think ingesting a bunch of depressants is the smartest thing to do if you're already feeling pretty down. So how can you stop this from destroying relationships, pushing people away, that kind of thing? So the very first thing I would say is having things in place like regular exercise, good sleep, maybe a meditation in the morning and the evening, and eating well. These are all things which are going to help stabilize your mood no matter who you are. And if you have these things in place, you can kind of predict more likely how you're going to end up feeling from one day to the next. But the truth is, we can't always keep the most optimized diary of a CEO pilled routine. Sometimes life just kind of throws you off center. Things happen, and before you know it, your kind of structure's kind of got loose a little bit. So when this does happen and our mood does start to fluctuate a little bit, I think that if you really do need to cancel or change plans because of this, communicating honestly with the people in your life is key. Letting them know what's going on with you, why you're cancelling. If they're people you trust and you can tell that information to, do it. Because then they know it's nothing to do with them. They don't take it personally. And and then that relationship can be maintained. Because I think there's a really key takeaway from this video. Isolation is definitely your enemy. From personal experience, a couple of years ago, I went through a phase of thinking that social life and having friends and doing fun stuff with friends was a distraction from, personal goals. So like the gym, my university work, and I kind of unplugged from my social life and my support network. And I ended up just feeling really depressed and I lost all motivation for my goals, so it didn't even help me in that way. So definitely don't fall for that trap of thinking that, oh, I need to go lone wolf and isolate myself to become better. No, you need people who care about you and that you have fun with and regular contact with those type of people. That will help you to improve yourself. And this makes complete sense, right? Because if you look at Maslow's hierarchy, social interaction and good friendships is right after your basic needs like food, shelter, water, and safety. And you need to have that in place before you reach the thing at the top of the ladder, which is self-actualization. So that's pursuit of personal goals, self-development, self-improvement. You can only achieve that if you have the social life and good quality connections in place. Now, the second thing I want to focus on is rejection sensitivity. This is something that's linked to emotional regulation. And what it is essentially is a heightened emotional reaction to perceived or actual rejection or criticism. Now, you might be saying, no one likes rejection. Like, it makes everyone feel bad. And yeah, I agree with you. Everyone's pretty anti-rejection. But the difference for someone with rejection sensitivity dysphoria is this actually feels like an intense emotional pain. It can be sadness, anger, anxiety. And the thing is, all these reactions can be even to something that's very ambiguous. It's not even necessarily someone saying outright, I don't like you, I'm rejecting you. It can be a look someone gives you. It can be, someone that you meet day to day that normally you have a really good chat with. And for some reason that day, they're not as chatty. They kind of brush you off a little bit and don't really want to engage with you. Now, someone who's more sensitive to rejection is more likely to interpret that as being, that person wasn't as chatty with me, they now don't like me. I've done something wrong, or they've just changed their opinion on me. And when you're seeing the world through this distorted lens, it can lead you on a path of confirmation bias, and you start to see rejection over and over again in your interactions with someone when they've not even in their head changed their opinion on you at all. And the more stuck you get in this kind of web of thoughts and feelings, you can then start to change your behavior towards that person. And you might kind of withdraw because you're so kind of scared of feeling rejected, and you stop chatting to them. And then they suddenly wonder, what's going on with this guy? I thought we were cool. Or you might start to become more defensive and be kind of bitter and angry, passive aggressive, and the other person kind of senses that energy shift, and they then might start to be less sure of you, and then it's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy where, yeah, they might end up not wanting to spend as much time with you because you've got all this kind of weird energy. And similarly, if you're more of a people pleaser person, in order to kind of stop the rejection that in your head is happening, you might stop being overly nice and change your behavior, and the other person senses that and they don't understand it, and it can be a bit awkward. So how do we stop rejection sensitivity from derailing our personal lives and our relationships? I think, first of all, self-awareness is huge. If you know that this is something that you've struggled with in the past, just be aware that if you feel like someone's rejecting you, or you kind of feel those kind of senses go up, recognize that it might not actually be the case. And CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, is very, very good for this, because it's a way of unraveling all the unhelpful thoughts that colour how you see the world and getting them out on a piece of paper. So writing down, if we use the example I used previously of you chat to someone you normally chat to and they're not as friendly that day, your brain might be screaming at you, they don't like me anymore, they've changed their opinion on me. And if you write that down, and then you also write down underneath it 5, 6, 7 different explanations for this change. So it could be they were tired that day, they were preoccupied by something in their personal life, they didn't get much sleep the previous night, so their energy was a bit low. And then once you have that all laid out in front of you, it really puts things into perspective, and you start thinking, well, how come I've chosen to focus on and give credence to the most negative explanation when there's all these other ones which are as likely, if not more likely, to be true? So the third and final thing I want to speak about is difficulty reading social cues. Now, social cues are just ways that we communicate. They tend to be non-verbal, so things like facial expressions, body language, and tone of voice. And neurodivergent people in general, not just people with ADHD, often have more trouble than the average person in picking these things up. And it can sometimes feel that neurotypical people have a whole network of underground signals and unspoken communications that we're just not privy to. So I've definitely been tripped up by this at times in the past. I went through a bit of a phase where if I was really excited to do something with someone, whether it's inviting them to a social event or inviting them to collaborate with me on something, if they said yeah, I just run with that and go, yeah, brilliant, and start planning ahead, and then get further down the line and it turns out they didn't actually want to do it, which obviously leads to a bunch of confusion and frustration. But if I'd been more aware of social cues at the time, I might have been able to pick up that, okay, they're saying yeah, but they might not be as enthusiastic as I hope they are. And those non-verbal cues could have been, they might have said yeah, but said it like, yeah? The vocal tone's a little bit like, it's not yeah, it's a little bit unsure. And then maybe the facial expression was a bit like, yeah? And they were kind of squinting and looked a bit uncertain as well and a bit uncomfortable. And in that moment, I could have said, oh, only if you really want to do it. I'll leave it with you. Get back to me if you want to do it. And then I can go forward knowing, okay, hopefully it's a yeah, but I'm not going to go ahead and assume it is until I get that clarification. So in terms of how to get better at reading these sort of social cues, the only advice I've possibly got for you is get out in the world, socialize, talk to people, interact with them, meet loads of different people, and eventually through the kind of trial and error process, you'll start to pick up on these patterns. You'll make small mistakes and misinterpret stuff, but 9 times out of 10, it won't be the end of the world. And the more reps you put in, the more hours you put in, the better and easier and smoother things will get. So that was 3 ways that ADHD can affect your social life. I hope you got something from the video, and I'll see you on the next one.